are you enjoying so far? Who's a first timer for the Web Summit? All right, welcome. I'll see you in Portugal next year. So this conversation is very close to my heart, and we had some great warming up talks back there. I think it would be great for us to introduce ourselves in the context of the conversation, explaining also which side are we on. So why don't you start?
Yep, I am Joanna Weidenmiller, and I'm the CEO of OnePage. I am a non-technical founder, but did teach myself how to code to build the first version of the product because it started in my apartment, and I didn't have anyone that wanted to work with me. So OnePage is now the largest enterprise recruiting platform in the world. We have about 1.2 billion people on our platform, and we go into enterprises and help them recruit large amounts of talent. So our average client is hiring about 1,000 people a month. We help them place all that talent.
I'm James Windon, president and co-founder at Brigade. I'm the least technical person you'll meet, maybe ever. So I bring that perspective to the panel. Brigade was founded about a year and a half ago with the mission to try and use technology to improve the democratic process. We rolled out our first tool about 4 months ago, a tool that makes it easy for people to express their opinions about politics and beliefs online and find people who think like them. We actually just finished off 2 days ago a test around the local elections in San Francisco. So we're just going to keep releasing tools for the next year and a half heading into 2016.
Yeah, my name's Nate Walkingshaw.
You are a guy on the hoodie. We need a guy on the hoodie.
I know.
It's you, Nate.
It's hard when someone's so fashion conscious. My name's Nate Walkingshaw. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Pluralsight. We're the largest developer IT and creative content library in the world. If you're going to come learn any of those development skills, you come to our library to learn it. And I'm kind of split in the middle early on in my career because I was more hardware, software. That's kind of the evolution. I actually had to become a technical co-founder just from an engineering perspective, but mechanical engineering more so. But you know, this is going to be a challenging conversation because I actually feel pretty strongly about you know, you don't necessarily have to be a technical co-founder to be successful.
So I'll save my introduction for the talk after this at the fashion stage, if you're into fashion. You heard about Decoded before, but one thing that I did back in 2013 was the world's first fashion hackathon, and that was when I delved into this world of your experience, Nate, of being the entrepreneur, the idea. Unfortunately, I was a sole founder, which I think is very sad and lonely sometimes. I tried to find a co-founder, and it didn't quite work out. And then I saw that I had to acquire technical knowledge to build my company to an area that was valuable for engineers. And I saw this divide between the entrepreneurial side and the engineer side. They don't talk to each other. They don't belong to the same conversations. And how does that affect, this dynamic affects the company? You know, you have the ideas guy and you have the engineering guy. Rarely I see that the same person has technical skills and entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, you know, depending on what the product is, right? Whether this is a hardware or software product, you know, you have to have technical expertise in order to execute this. Like, I look at this room in here, right? Like, the way that these couches are set up, that's user experience design. This structural engineering of this building, you know, is a mechanical engineer who designed this, or a civil engineer that designed this. And then a user experience designer or product manager told us how many chairs, you know, needed to be in the room. So, like, you know, when you think about a company or a business or a product, like, if you don't actually have those three critical points of view, it's really tough to be successful. I think long term, and really, I mean, I would be, you know, curious to know the thoughts, you know, from all of you is, you know, what stage is the company in, right? Because it's all about the investment and the calories that you decide to put into it, and really where you decide to emphasize that time at that stage in its company's life cycle.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, one of the big things that I look at is, I think as any founder, you need to know exactly what you don't know, and then hire the best people in the world to do exactly that. And so I think that for me, one thing that I'm really open about is I hire people much smarter than me and I get the hell out of their way. And that means that I look for Michael Jordan. I look for the guy that's going to make the free throw 86% of the time, because I'm not going to question whether his elbow angle is right. And I think that's the case whether you're looking for somebody technically or in product, if you're looking for marketing, or if you're looking for sales or customer success. And I've been really lucky with that kind of a model that in the beginning, when I started One Page, nobody wanted to, you're not going to get the guy that leaves Google or the guy that was running sales at Yahoo or running customer success at Salesforce to leave those companies and join you because you haven't proven yourself enough. And I think it's around hiring the right people that are going to help you get to that stage. But on a technical side, I would say that what I loved is I actually identified a lot with founders, or I looked up to founders that were a lot like me. There are quite a lot of non-technical founders, the founders of everything from YouTube to Tinder to WhatsApp to Instagram to Dell. None of those are technical founders. They have no technical experience. And so to think that, you have to have a technical knowledge to build those, that's incorrect. And I think finding the right people is what's the most valuable part of doing that. You're not going to find your right-hand person the first try. It's like what Liz said. You find it. You think you're going to go after finding a co-founder and it doesn't work out. Be willing to walk away from that, I think.
And James, how did it work with you? Like you had an idea before you folded into this new idea. Did you have the technical help right in the beginning? Do you have a co-founder? How did that play out for you?
I mean, not really, no. We didn't have technical capacity from the beginning. For us, it was very much, we had a vision for the product that we wanted to build, and we were looking for technical people who were excited by that vision. I think when you work in a space like we do, which is civic tech or democracy and technology, the sorts of people who are attracted to work at a company like that kind of fall into two buckets, and you need both of those elements. One, there are some very difficult technical challenges, and you always look for people who are excited by solving those problems. But the other thing was really mission fit. I think most of the people who want to work at Brigade are interested in, either they're interested in politics or they're interested in the sort of solution we're trying to build for democracy. So I think those are the two things we were looking for. And it was challenging early on. It took a long time to try and find another person who had the technical experience and also the passion for the space. It probably took 6 or 9 months.
One thing that I had to learn that was very valuable to me, I don't know if you agree, Nate, and Joanna specifically, it wasn't really coding per se, it was the language of coding, like the language to, like what languages exist, how do their minds work, how do they communicate to each other, how do you express your vision to them in their own terms, and how to entice them. Because what drives entrepreneurs is not the same thing that drives engineers, right? It's not the same value system, really. So what's the gap there? Like how is the language different?
Yeah, I think that's really observant, actually.
Yeah.
I think what's really important, you talk about value system engineers versus entrepreneurs. It's really cool if you sit down and actually explain the why. Like, why does the company want to try and accomplish this goal? And I think that's really, the cool thing about this is like the technical mindset works on that. And actually shares back, a different perspective about maybe how you could get there other than maybe how maybe a non-technical mindset was thinking. And so, I've always found that pretty useful if we get on the whiteboard and we sketch out exactly the purpose or the why behind what we want to go do. It usually ends up in a pretty fruitful conversation, pretty heated discussion sometimes, but most of the time pretty fruitful.
I think also a product is going to evolve. You're going to have a constant evolution of a product, and when you start something, it will go through a pivot. And if you think that your first idea is not going to evolve, you haven't thought hard enough about it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It's why even when you're trying to build that team, you have to talk about the larger picture vision. So it's absolutely, it's extremely observant, is when you try and recruit for somebody in one certain type of technical expertise, you're going to end up having to find other people because your product's going to merge and evolve, and you're going to end up needing to do other things. And you're absolutely right. That first person needs to be able to, actually the most important thing is hire engineers. They need to be able to hire diverse engineers.
Can I say, one thing on that, I actually think the why has, from my perspective, has become necessary to actually recruit people. I think that the days of assuming you can give, even the most junior engineers a list of things that they have to build and then just tell them to build those things and nothing else in a very prescriptive way, I think those days are probably over. I think, technical people, junior or senior, need space to solve problems that are interesting to them. And when you have, enormous companies, like Facebook's a great example, where an engineer can have the stability and the compensation associated with a big company, but also have creative room to work on problems that they want to. If you're a startup, you may not be able to match them on the former, so you definitely have to match them on the latter, which means you need to give technical people space to solve problems, which means you really need to take the time to explain, this is why we're doing it, this is why it's important to the company, this is how we think it fits into the longer-term vision. Now go off and approach the problem how you want to approach it.
That's a great point. One of the things that I was saying to you outside, James, is that I see a trend right now of entrepreneurs, those with the idea, wanting to start a company, realizing that they want to tackle a problem, they don't have seed funding, they need a technical product built, it's a software, for instance, they need an engineer. They can afford that engineer, so I need to find a co-founder. So there's a lot of co-founder dating going there. There's a lot of blind dates. By the way, if you get invited to a co-founder date event, just don't fucking go. It doesn't work, okay? It doesn't work. If you wouldn't get married that way, just don't even bother. Don't build a company that way, because it is a fucking marriage. That's what it is. So I'm wondering, like, have you seen this trend? And I don't know if people come to you, Joanna, and saying, just find me a co-founder. Because in my experience, and I've seen great companies this year go under because the technical co-founder was like a gun for hire. It was just someone that they couldn't afford. They just kind of got the guy there. They barely knew each other, and the visions were completely different.
Yeah, we hire, our average client size is about 40,000 employees, and so they're actually hiring, mass amounts of engineers, and a lot of the time, even then, they're completely not seeing eye to eye with these large corporations, the large corporation's vision and the engineer. But I think that I think you're absolutely right. You can't expect that some algorithm's going to put you together with the co-founder that you're supposed to be with, and this is coming from someone who, I'm throwing it out here so that you guys know, I met my husband on Match.com, so I'm going to tell you, you can't find your co-founder by algorithm, but you can find your husband by algorithm. But I think there was a lot that goes into play that way, and I would say that when you're looking for anybody, I mean, I started one page in my apartment in my pajamas about three and a half years ago, is when it first started. Today we're public, and the difference in that evolution of what you're looking for in a person, the co-founder that I found the company with, actually we had to kind of both merge and mold into our roles. And you will have knockdown, drag-out fights with your co-founder, and don't let those be the reason why you might separate. Don't let one of those be the reason that you aren't going to make it work. It's coming back together and saying, this is my goal and this is your goal. How are we going to find those two things together? Because we both have a passion for what we're doing. Our passion from the day that when we ever hire anybody is that we ask them, what do they believe in? And for us, we all believe that nobody should be hired based on bias of background. That if you're still pretty amazing if you didn't go to Harvard and Stanford and have 5 years of experience, so that you can too also get a job, and people identify with that in our company, and I think that that's one of the big reasons why when we go out and we do what we do, that's what they identify with, and I think you need to find that. My first engineer hire, it is no longer with the company. And I remember the first hire I made that was on the product side, who was like, they were the first person I hired, and I realized I made it. I call them an American Idol. They were like on the side of the road strumming along and turned into Kelly Clarkson or like Taylor Swift. Like this was the equivalent of that on a product side, and I think that was the first hire. And I remember saying, I have the first guy that they can see the vision of the product, help me build that product, but at the same time is going to help me hire the rest of those engineers that I need to hire that bridges the gap. So
you must do a lot of evangelizing, right? Even though you work with the group, with the product, like with the community, and trying to talk to engineers. And did you see a change, like a shift of culture? Even, I'm going to do an HBO plug-in. If you guys have not seen Silicon Valley, just fucking do it. It's incredible because it looks so stupid at first, but it's like #truth, that thing, right?
It's very true.
And when you look at those engineers, they began the show with just doing what they told, just doing the thing, the stereotypical, but then suddenly they have a voice and they're fighting over the vision of the company. Do you feel that in the time that you've been with Pluralsight that there is a change of culture in the engineering community? They want to be builders. They just don't want to build a code. They want to build a vision.
Yeah, I mean, we're we're probably in a little bit of a different stage. I mean, it's helpful to know. I mean, Pluralsight's been around for 11 years, but up until about a year ago, they actually didn't have a product and engineering culture at all. So I mean, it was a content-driven company. And so really what's happened over the last year, we've infused technology and engineering. It was 15 engineers, and now we're almost 90 engineers and 30, product folks. And the thing is we actually made a conscious decision to move to a user-centric, right, product development methodology.
What does that mean?
And so everything is based around personas. So like when we go build a product, we have learners, right, planners, and authors. And so our primary learners, they're developers, IT, and creative individuals. Our planners are enterprise SMB planners, and the entire company, from a product and engineering perspective, is aligned in those verticals. And then the horizontals, the horizontal teams run across that. So they're all cross-functional, co-located. But the thing that's really important here is that product management, user experience design, and engineer, they're all peers. They're shoulder to shoulder. It's not waterfall product development. They all sit in. We spit off probably around 30 customer interviews a week. So anywhere from 200 to 300 live customer interviews through voice of the customer and customer preference tests. So I mean, we have completely shifted the culture of the organization around a content-driven organization. It is really based around a user-centric model. So about listening to our users. But the thing that I really wanted to kind of play back here, which was, it's all about the stage of the business. Like really, it's super important to talk about, because as a co-founder, you're going through this like crazy, mind game with yourself about like, how much do I technically learn? I need to sound competent with the rest of my team. And at some point, you just come to this realization, like, you know what? Actually, that's not what I should be doing. I actually need to hire like really smart people. And I need to remove myself from that. But what happens is that you need to check your ego at the door. Mm-hmm. And people forget to check their ego at the door, and then they end up just mowing other people's lawn all of the time.
I'm going to ask for an example of that one.
Yeah, well, the example that I would give is, early in Paramed, I'd invented these tracks that mount to the bottom of an ambulance cot, and it was a super technical product. It was all metallurgy. And I literally was sitting at a manual mill shaving 40 thousandths off of a spacer. I'm like, a machinist and a really mechanical engineer should be doing that, but I'm the co-founder in a machine shop doing that myself. And I was like, yeah, probably not a good idea. And so, this is a really good opportunistic moment for me to just say, you know what, I need to hire much more intelligent people than myself that know how to do this if we're ever going to scale, right?
Got it. And for you, for Brigade, I think, James, it's such an important product for like the mission, but you're in the very beginning of your journey. There's so many possibilities as the political system evolves, become more digitized, the challenges you're going to face. So there'll be a lot of technical product there, a lot of technical development there, and whatever thing you do, you're going to need that base, that culture within your company for you to grow. Mm. So how are you tackling that?
It's challenging, as I say. I think for us, Silicon Valley is, and probably, I don't know as much about Europe, but my sense is it's not dissimilar. Is super competitive.
You don't sound like a Californian, James.
No, I know, Southern California.
Where are you from?
Sydney, Australia.
Sydney.
Yeah. South Dakota, actually, sunny South Dakota. So I think there are a couple things for us. Like number one. Because I think people feel what we've felt and what so many people feel, which is democracy isn't really working the way it's meant to work, having a conversation about the mission of the company is where we always start. That if I look at what is our comparative advantage from a recruiting perspective right now in a very, very competitive industry, I think that's probably number one on the list, because it's something that people are like, yeah, that does suck, and yeah, that's really important, and yeah, I would like to be involved in fixing that. But that's not sufficient. Our last company was a company called Causes, one of the early applications on Facebook. And similarly, like a really interesting mission. Charity's a really big industry, $300 billion a year industry. Yeah. And people were like, oh, that's a really cool industry. I want to be part of that. But I think the change we made at Brigade was we really focused on building, on building a culture internally known for technical excellence. Engineers want to work with other brilliant engineers, get better, and be not just a company that's tackling an interesting mission, but a company that builds world-class technology with world-class technologists. So that was a real focus for us. And the way we approached that was finding senior leaders who knew how to build such organizations. And then the other, from a very specific recruiting perspective, which does, I think, to your point, and also your point, Joanna, about the stage of the company, we're probably have over-indexed in terms of building out recruiting as a functionality within the company than I would say other companies at our stage. But what that's led us to do is, I think, be able to hire very, very quickly, very, very good people. So yeah, focus on the mission, I think, focus on technical excellence, and then build out recruiting as a function is the three things that we think of.
So Joanna, how do we win hearts? Like when you have a mission, he decided, okay, this is what I want to build, and now recruiting towards who cares about this cause, that it's now my cause, my product. And your product also has a higher purpose. It's very important, and you have to visualize around that. So when you know what your cause is or your product is, how do you win the hearts of the technical side to come fight that fight with you? I was mentioned to you that back in 2013, no one wanted to build anything for fashion. There were no unicorns. It sounded like a girly waste of time. It was pretty sexist, the view of the vertical, and everything changed with some great companies. The conversations were hard. So what is the recipe of communicating here?
Yeah, I think that
Recruiting, actually.
It's a great question. As the CEO and as a founder, and especially as a non-technical founder, my job is to provide the resources and the vision and the opportunity for the company. Whether that means, we constantly are acquiring companies, we've acquired companies in the past. I am always raising money, and I will give you a great example. I'm not always raising money. We're public, so every day you're selling shares. Every day you're trying to be a voice that says, don't sell my shares or buy my shares or whatever it is. Last week, Monday morning started, and by the end of Monday morning, we had $50 million in the bank. And my employees looked at me and they were like, how did we not know about this? And I'm like, because your job is to build everything that you're building. Your job is to sell things. Your job is customer success. It is my job to make sure that we have the resources so that you guys can keep doing that. And for that, what that does is it gains the respect of the organization that I will always, they come to me with a problem and I will come to them with a solution. And so in a way that is, hey, Joanna, we absolutely need to hire this person. Great, we're going to put the resources towards that, and we're going to get the best recruiter we can on making sure inside the organization that their focus is to bring in that engineer or to bring in that team. I would say that when you sometimes are clear and are good at saying, I am not good at this and we as an organization need help on this, when you go and you use that as a recruiting, to recruit someone and say, here's this big opportunity we have. We have all these great customers, or we have this great technology, or we have this great vision and opportunity ahead of us. We need someone who's going to build it. We need the best people in the world to do that. There's something, especially when it comes to engineers that are leaders, they're like, yes, solve a problem. I mean, the last thing they want to do is go to Google and just continue to maintain code. They want to go and build something. They want to try and actually have a big part in that. So don't be shy to go up to them and say, I need your best effort, and I will give you my best effort, and together we're going to make this happen. But I'm very much on the business side of it, and they rely on that. Even when it comes down to, we need to hire these people, I'm going to make a phone call to a business partner that will have drop in 6 engineers overnight so that we can build a back end on a certain client that we need to build just because we don't have the engineers to do it, or whatever it is. It is my job to make sure I can still do that. So I think it's a balance.
If you're a big company, support their needs. If you're big or small, communicate your vision with a problem that they can be passionate about solving. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one element that I actually really love to talk about, which is separating vision versus the implementation of ideas. So, to kind of her point, it is really clear for the leadership, right, to provide the vision. But the thing is that the teams are responsible, and the purpose of their daily work is actually the implementation of those ideas. And what kind of us as visionaries need to be really cognizant of is that when you go to implement the idea at the team level, it's going to probably reshape the vision. And so we have to be open to that, because we really had a good idea in our mind, but until they got into the actual execution of it, it actually reshaped because we couldn't pull off some of the things. So, and I think that's really important for the teams to hold on to that, because that is when they're driving home at work or coming into work, those are the things that their minds are working on. which is really valuable for them, in their career every single day. It's important for their career development as well. So just, career, kind of the vision versus ideas is a huge piece for us.
And to close, James, how did you communicate your vision? How did you win their hearts to jump on board?
I think we've been thinking about the problem we're trying to solve at Brigade for probably 7 years, so we're getting pretty good at it, at the song and dance. I think it's really it all comes down to building empathy, like framing our view of the problem in a way that makes the people we're talking to also understand and share the challenges and the pain and believe that that's something they want to solve. So I think it fundamentally is about empathy.
Well, that's it for us. Don't let the rain hold you back. It's the last day. Enjoy the summit. Thanks for having us here.
Thanks.